this film was beloved in the U.S. and especially the character of Gelsomina. Fellini said that when they went to the United States, he and his wife, Giulietta.
Messina.
Not Manzini, not Manzoni, Messina, Giulietta Messina. When they went to the U.S., he said people didn't know whether to smile at her or kiss the hem of her garment. They saw her as a cross between Saint Rita and Mickey Mouse. And he said that Walt Disney actually had wanted to make a comic book or a film about this character at one point.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a great description of her, because in this film too, her performance is constantly jumping back and forth between two sort of polar opposite ends of the emotional spectrum, where at one moment she's just totally pathetic and sort of evoking our sympathy. I mean, this is a film that deals with some really sad stuff, some heavy stuff, but at the other end, she's just like
tripping and falling into a hole at that very moment.
Laugh out loud funny, you know, and delightful. There's a real likeness to this character and to her performance that really sort of offsets the heaviness of a lot of its themes. But James, I cut you off. You were going to say something.
I was just going to continue your thought. I had heard that the film had a rough reception because of its ostensible politics in Italy. And that, even though there were a lot of strong initial responses to it as a truly transformative film, I didn't realize that the American love of it was so exceptional or distinctive compared to the Italian reception. But that doesn't surprise me a bit. You mentioned Mickey Mouse. The film, in several ways, strikes me as deeply rooted in an imagination that Americans would that would resonate with Americans, and I mean this in a pretty basic sense. Gelsomina, with her either in clown costume or just with her cloak, which looks like an oversized trench coat, with her stumpy little body and round cartoonish features and her cropped hair, she's very similar in appearance and in movement and behavior to Harpo Marx.
Totally. Yeah, I had the same thought, actually. Yeah.
And so a lot of the humor of the film is the slightly anarchical clownishness of Harpo. And then clearly God's providence intended this to be the case. The plot as a whole has many similarities, and the characters as a whole have many similarities to Flannery O'Connor's Wise Blood, which was published just 2 years before this film was made.
Well, maybe we can talk about this performance a little bit, because it's really interesting how she has this very distinct performance from the other actors in the film, and yet it totally makes sense. It totally works, both because of this circus context and because of her character having this whatever intellectual defect she might have. It's interesting. You mentioned Harpo Marx. The circus was also a preoccupation for Fellini. He left home at 10 and joined a circus for a while. There's a lot of circus themes in his movies in general. 8.5 ends with a very circus-like, with the circus sequence. Right. And the music of Nino Rota is often very circus-like. We can talk about that later. It's probably my favorite score of any of the films on the Vatican film list so far. Cool. Is La Strada's score. Yeah, it's great. Her maybe, I don't know, can you say something about her acting? It's got like mime-like qualities.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that immediately strikes you, I think, once you start watching this, is that it's almost as if everybody else is in a talkie and then she's in her own silent film.
Right.
You know?
It's like a silent film comedian.
Yeah, where someone will say something and then it'll cut to her and she'll give this really expressive reaction, but totally silently. She does speak in the film, but so often she's not speaking, and she's sort of staying mute and delivering these very physical responses to things, which is part of where a lot of the just sheer joy comes from watching her. But but it's also, it's really compelling because she'll have real, like, there are several moments where she has tears in her eyes, like real, she is the sad clown, like that painting, that image, that idea where she'll just be going through some real suffering and then still be able to like make us laugh somehow.
The very first series of cuts illustrate that almost for the whole film. The first thing we see is her with her back turned towards us and facing the sea, and she has firewood on her back. She's a drudge, but then the children come running down the strand and say, "Jessamina, your mother wants you." So she goes running, the servant of her mother, to come to the scene where we see Zampano for the first time standing back, leaned against the wall and smoking his hand-rolled butts. And we hear Rosa has died, her sister has died, traveling the roads with Zampano. Would she go with him? And then we hear that she's going to be sold by her mother to him for 10,000 lira. And all up to this point, we have the unloved, slow of study, backward child drudge who's being sold off in, if this were a French novel or a Russian novel, this figure, the meaning of this moment would be of pure mercenary cruelty. The mother who's willing to sell her own child off effectively to poverty and selling her also effectively into prostitution. And again, I think if Francois Mauriac or Bernanos were handling this, the focus would be entirely on the cruelty of the mother. But two things make this distinctly Italian and maybe distinctly Fellini. One is Gelsomina is shocked and struck dumb. Of course, she's always struck dumb, but she's blank with this, realizing that her mother is selling her to a traveling strongman. But then she turns away, kneels down on the beach facing the sea so that only we see her in the camera. And then, as you say, James, her eyes light up with tears, but you see that it's tears of joy, and she's smiling because she is thinking, I'm going to go on the road. I'm not going to be collecting firewood anymore. I'm going to go have an adventure. And she doesn't know what's in store for her, but just the delight of change excites her. And if Fellini joined the circus in his youth and felt such enthusiasm for it, I think he captures both, the mercenary and materialist nastiness of this scenario, but also the prospect of joy and adventure and just delight of this naive, dumb girl as she's going to go off into the world.